Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Defiant Podcast. I'm your host, Majid Padellan, aka Brooklyn Dad Defiant. This is my co-host with the co-most, the Hessenator, my man, Kenny Hesse.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to a new week and a busy week. It has been, has it not?
It has been crazy. It's been crazy. What do you have on tap here?
Oh, we got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We have Biden's mega fundraiser with some Hollywood elite. We got, and also on Biden news, cheap fake videos.
Disgusting.
Yeah. Also scary as hell. Just the thought of we'll get into it, but yeah, that's another thing. We have the Blacks for Trump debacle that happened. Which is, I mean, that one's a nutso case in and of itself.
Can you call it Blacks for Trump if you've only got a handful with you there?
So here's the thing, you can, because he did. But should you? Probably not.
You know, I don't even think I saw his usual Blacks for Trump, the guys that he has at every rally. I don't even think they were at the church.
Right, weird. He couldn't fly him out. His rapper gangster friends from the Bronx that are on trial for murder. What else do you have? Anything on the docket from this week?
Yeah, the Supreme Court. I don't think we covered this last week because that decision just came in as we were, as we were streaming. But the Supreme Court reversed a ban on bump stocks, and I was like a week ago years old when I found out that Donald Trump actually did something good when he was in office. He had put a ban on bump stocks, and bump stocks, for those of you who don't know, they turn a regular semi-automatic gun into a machine gun, which is illegal. Yes. So yeah, they did that, and it's the 9 years. I feel old. The 9-year anniversary of the infamous escalator speech. You know that one.
Oh yeah, the one that started it all.
Yeah.
Donald Trump announcing his candidacy for president.
They're not sending their best, or that whole thing. Yeah.
Damn, that was 9 years ago. That's wild, dude.
Yeah.
Wow. So a lot to cover this week, and that's what we're going to dive into this episode, which I'm very excited about. But first, we have a little audience engagement segment that we're very excited
I love this one.
Yeah. And so did they, which I'm really happy about.
Yes. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the segment I'm Old Enough to Remember.
that was me on a cane. I don't know if that came across, but yeah.
I didn't get your pantomime.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm old enough to remember. So we had some interesting comments, Kenny. There were some people who were really like they were up for the challenge. They were like, oh yeah, game on. We had Millie Collinear 9628. Her comment was, I'm old enough to remember coming in from playing outside to find my mom sitting on the stairs crying because President Kennedy had just been shot. I was only about 4 or 5 years old, but it stuck with me because it was the first time that I ever saw my mommy cry. At that young age, it was devastating to see one's mother crying. I've never forgotten that day. You have any days like that that are burned into your memory, Kenny?
Yeah. I guess, I mean, I don't want the video to get like stricken or anything for it, but September 11th I was, on the East Coast. I think that was the first day I remember seeing my dad really distraught. I also know like it was just a weird day. I think it was in second grade, and out of nowhere, kids just started leaving the school. And, I'm young. I don't really know what's going on. And then my parents usually didn't come to pick me up. I went to like an after school program because they worked pretty late. And so when my dad showed up around like the morning, noon, I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And then I remember going home and seeing it on the television, and my dad talking about how he watched the towers go up and stuff. And I was just like that is, I have very few memories of second grade, but that one is ingrained in there for sure. So
Yeah.
what about
Yeah.
yourself?
That was my that was my thing too. I had been up all night, and you made me feel. I see there's a severe age difference between us because you were in second grade, and I had been up all night sending out resumes because I was tired of my job, and
Fair.
I had one of those like old floor TV things. Like it's a TV when they used to build TV sets into like these wooden boxes that
Yeah.
came up to your waist. They're like really, and the whole TV itself probably weighed like 200 pounds. You know, you need two guys to bring these into your house. Yeah, it
Right.
was heavy. Anyway, I'm at my desk, and this floor TV is sitting by my desk. And as I'm shooting out emails, this is now like 8:45 in the morning. I've been up all night.
Yeah.
My TV went dead. Like there was just snow, and I
Yeah.
kept flipping through the channels until only channel 2, CBS, was available. And I was like, huh, that's weird. And it just showed one of the towers, smoking. It's on fire.
Yeah.
And I remember the news commentators talking about how it was a completely clear, cloudless
Right.
sky, blue
Right.
cloudless sky. But they were like, it must have been an accident. And then I remember watching as I saw the second plane hit the tower, and I was like, oh my
Dude.
God. And I was like immediately scared because this felt like, oh, this is something else.
Yeah.
And I remember trying to reach my friend. I had a good buddy that worked in one of the towers. And I'm calling him frantically for the next 30 to 40 minutes, and he's not answering his phone. I'm like,
Oh my God.
Yeah, he worked at Merrill Lynch. And
Oh.
finally at I think 9:30 or 9:35, he answered the phone.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, John, are you okay? He's like, yeah, dude, I was late. And this brother was always late, man. That was the one thing you could count on. He was late. And he's like, I came out of the subway and I saw that, and I was just like, no,
Nope.
and he just left. But I mean, I spent that entire day in tears, as did much of America. So yeah, that is burned into my memory forever. That's one of those moments. But for a lot of older folks, the Kennedy assassination hit hard like that.
I can imagine. I mean, it's still got that, that power, like, to make. There was that Stephen King book that got turned into a show with James Franco, where they try to go back and stop his assassination. And stuff. Oh, very good show. I think it's it's like 11/28/63 or something. It's like the date it happened is the title of the show. Highly recommend. It's a good watch.
All right, I'll check that out. Thank you.
But yeah, a lot of stuff like that burned into the consciousness of the American psyche, which is crazy. Moving on, I guess. Don't want to spend too much time on that. We have another I'm old enough to remember from Ralph Coomer 7116, who said, I'm old enough to remember when in 1968, the town of York, South Carolina, and the elders decided to close the segregated swimming pool instead of integrating it. Many kids before and since then in York have not learned to swim, especially children of color. Wow. Close the pool. So wow, that is wild.
That's a hell of a memory. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it never fails to amaze me. Like I'm 56, but I was fortunate enough to have grown up after, and it wasn't that long after, Jim Crow laws were still in effect that made, like if I was a little bit older, I wouldn't have been able to use and lived in the South. Right. I wouldn't have been able to use certain water fountains or bathrooms, or couldn't go into certain restaurants, and like that thought is so foreign and so bizarre to me. It's like, in America, for
Yeah.
real?
And it's why it's like when people try to like say things like, oh, there's no racism, or oh, there aren't these underlying systemic issues. It's like, dude, it wasn't that fucking long ago. Like,
Yeah,
what are you
yeah, yeah.
what are you talking about? This entire place was built on those racial divisions from the get-go, and it only progressively got better. But even then, the Jim Crow, the segregation, those effects are still felt down the line. Those are things that are like cemented in to the institutions and the societal constructions that we have that lead to modern day.
Right.
And ignoring that is pretty damn ignorant.
And what else is ignorant is, do you remember I think it was last week, Byron Donalds made some ridiculous comment about how black families were closer during Jim Crow, and they voted conservative.
You see, during Jim Crow, the black family was together.
That's right.
During Jim Crow, more black people were not just conservative, because black people always have been conservative minded, but more black people voted conservatively. And then HEW, Lyndon Johnson, and then you go down that road, and now we are where we are.
First of all, if they were even able to vote,
right?
Okay, because one of the things that was permitted under Jim Crow were these things called poll taxes, where you'd have to pay extra in order to be allowed to vote. Or there were these quizzes that you had to take, and if you couldn't answer
cognitive tests,
well, not even that would have been easy. No, there was like serious tests where they would ask you. 76% of African Americans back then were illiterate. In the South, they hadn't learned to read, so it was almost impossible for them to correctly answer these questions. And if you couldn't correctly answer, you couldn't vote.
Yeah.
So it's ludicrous to say that black families were voting conservative, because most of them couldn't even vote. Period.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were closer together, that might have been because we weren't allowed to. We had to sit at the back of the bus. We weren't allowed to make googly eyes at a white woman unless we be strung up like Emmett Till. Strung up, beaten to death, drowned, hung, all that stuff. So yeah, things were not great under Jim Crow, and guys like Ron DeSantis want to say slavery was actually beneficial to some people.
Wild.
Because they learned skills.
Wild. And that's in 2020, whatever. I mean, maybe it was in 2024, but this was recent that he said those things. It's crazy. Unbelievable.
What's funny, what else is funny to me is that, Republicans or conservatives, whatever, they like to accuse us of going to the race card. And honestly, it wasn't on my bingo card that we were going to have to relitigate slavery, whether or not slavery was beneficial to black people, that we're going to have to relitigate that in 2023 or 2024. Come on now.
Just outrageous.
Let me read this one here by Winky Blink.
Okay.
Winky Blink 7625. And they say, I'm old enough to remember Nixon massively sweating on TV while debating JFK. Boy, did he shine. Ha! And Kennedy was so cool and smiling.
Damn. Wow, what a time for that one to come up.
Yes.
Right? We have the debate only, what is today? This the 19th when we're recording. The debate is on the 27th for Trump and Biden. And this is just a great comparison here, because I remember, I mean, I don't remember this, I didn't see it, but I know for a fact, and I've seen it in like on YouTube and stuff, because it's so historic. But it basically is what helped Kennedy win, is because that was the first televised debate, right? Yep. And Nixon just looked like he wasn't in control. He was sweating. He wasn't as good. He's not performative. And Kennedy just kind of came in and swept, looking cool as a cucumber. And that in essence got him to the White House.
Yeah. That was the beginning of like the age of TV making a real difference in politics, and politicians having to like prepare for the visuals, for, for optics of sweating, whereas before they didn't have to worry about that. What kind of optics? First of all, what do you think? Do you think Trump shows up?
Dude, everyone is saying no. And I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't, but I also don't know like how he comes out of not showing up looking any better than if he did. Like if he pulls out, he just looks like a wuss.
Yeah. A coward. You want to ditch a debate against a guy that you and all of your denizens, all of your loyal supporters have been lowering expectations. He can't even put two sentences together. And you're afraid of facing this guy, huh?
Yeah.
Sleepy Joe? You afraid of that?
Huh? That's your nightmare of a situation. And like, but to your point, they're already laying the groundwork to give him an out. Like Hannity was talking about it, trying to say, oh, it's going to be rigged.
Now, there are some even saying, Mark, that Donald Trump might be wise to just pass on the first debate, wait till he's nominated, then debate him. What would you say to that?
Trump was talking about it, saying, oh, it's rigged. The moderators are going to cut me off. Joe Biden's going to be on drugs.
Yep.
Like, he's getting slippery. He's greasing himself up. I'm saying that. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think he's gonna show?
As you said, I don't see how he avoids this this debate. I mean, I think it would be disastrous to his image, because he likes to project this image of like, Mr. Alpha Male, right. I'm this virile, when they post these memes of Donald Trump's head on Rocky Balboa's body, they believe that shit. They believe that he is that man, they don't really see the reality. So, I think he would be, that could be devastating to him to avoid showing up. But if he does show up, first of all, the debate is going to be later in the day. And I've been watching Shrinking Trump, with Dr. John Gardner.
Yep.
And he frequently points out that later in the day, not good for somebody struggling with dementia.
Yeah.
Not good. So we've both seen him already in these debates where he's sniffing heavily. Yeah. I'm sure that's from, I don't know if that's from, is he snorting Adderall or is he snorting something else? What's making the snorting?
I don't know. I mean, maybe cocaine. He's got to get the little excess out. Maybe Don Jr. gave him a bump right before the show. Said, go get him, Dad. Don Jr.'s on cocaine.
Do you remember he made such a fuss about giving Joe Biden a drug test?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean, I think that's just the classic projection from him. Almost everything Donald Trump says, you can take as a projection of something he's guilty of or has a guilty conscience of, and he's projecting towards the other side. But
the interesting thing about it is that again, Dr. Gardner on Shrinking Trump says that if there were a drug that would address the symptoms associated with dementia, they would be giving that to everybody. So he said, if you are believing the premise that Joe Biden is experiencing some cognitive decline, and you think that they can give him some drug, they can administer something to erase those symptoms, you're crazy.
Yeah. 100%. That would be on the mark. It would be like finding a cure to cancer, and like everyone would have it, or Ozempic or something.
Yeah. Hey, I'm old enough to remember when people didn't brag about acing a cognitive test that involved identifying animals and remembering 5 basic words, and then forgetting the name of their doctor in the middle of the brag.
He doesn't even know what the word inflation means. I don't think if you gave him a quiz, I think he should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test and I aced it. Doc Ronnie Johnson. Does everyone know Ronnie Johnson, Congress?
Oh, you talking about Ronnie Johnson?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh, that was terrible. That was Trump at what was it? The Turning Point USA event?
I think so. Yeah.
My
It was this past weekend, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
It's just wild. Like, what a time to go off the rails. And like we've all been talking about, and Shrinking Tumper's been talking about, he's got obvious signs of dementia and cognitive decline. But when you do it in such an obvious fashion, when you're already bragging about acing a cognitive test, and then immediately after you forget the name of your own doctor that you made such a big deal about at the time. Like when he was in the office, he was like, the doctor says I'm great. He says I'm the best he's ever seen, all that crap.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, dude.
The healthiest president in history. I mean,
Sergeant Big Mac.
If you do this side by side with him and Obama, and you still think that he's the healthiest president in history, you're nuts.
Yeah.
You're nuts.
You got
6'3", 215 pounds. Come on. Come on.
Got some rose-colored glasses on for sure, or maybe their glasses, I don't know, have like fractals in it, and they see things differently.
But the thing about him bragging that about acing that test and trying to diss Joe Biden at the same time, it's like on Twitter when somebody steps up to me and they try to call me stupid, but they misspell like half the words in their tweet.
Yeah. Oh my God. And you're like, and then all you have to do to respond to those people is like correct their grammatical error with an asterisk.
Yeah.
And then it's like boom, ratio. Shut that shit down.
Yeah.
God, and the way he talks about these cognitive tests too, it's a meme in and of itself, because he sounds so ridiculous. Like I saw a clip of him and Hannity recently, and then him at Mar-a-Lago and stuff, and he's like, he's talking about how difficult the cognitive test is, but then the only question he can reference is like it's like cow, woman, camera. Like, dude. That doesn't seem that hard.
He has bragged about having the best memory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then he was questioned. I don't know if you saw this clip, but then he was questioned. He was deposed. There was a deposition where the questioner asked him, you said that you have the best memory. Do you recall saying that? No, I don't remember. No,
I don't remember.
I mean, I don't remember that. Okay, as good as my memory is, I don't remember that. But I have a good memory.
So you don't remember saying you have one of the best memories?
I don't remember.
You don't even remember saying that you said you have the best memory. that is some kind of shouldn't a hole open up in the fabric of reality and space-time continuum and suck him in there? I mean,
yeah,
it's insane.
It's absolutely insane. Everything he says, it's so funny too, because it's like, and it's okay, it's funny on one end, but it's also pretty scary on the other. But it's just the fact that he either is completely lying about not remembering or actually doesn't remember. I honestly don't know which one is better or worse, because the waters are so muddied by the fact that he does lie. And granted, that was a deposition, so it probably is somewhat of a lie, because he's saying, I don't recall, much like how he pled the fifth like so many times in other
Yeah.
depositions. But now, as we're seeing, it could very much, you know, those Venn diagrams aren't mutually exclusive anymore, whether it's a lie or just a brain fart. So it's kind of like, okay, on any given day, which Trump are you getting? Are you getting Lion Ted, or are you getting like, you know, Alzheimer's? Like,
it's a spectrum.
But
I mean, you'd have to think, right? There's gotta be some, if you're trying to say I am a smart guy, you gotta be able to access some other example. I mean, first of all, people who are smart, they don't brag about being smart. You never heard Stephen Hawking saying, I'm the smartest guy. He didn't have to.
Yeah.
You know, smart people don't have to. Like, and there's a whole meme, like rich people don't brag about being rich, you know?
Yeah.
It's all ridiculous smoke and mirrors, and I'm so exhausted by it.
Same. We do have another comment from, or sorry, let me retake that. Just well, getting back to the I am old enough to remember. This one's a little rough, but we live in 2024. I'm old enough to remember the days you didn't have to question whether a video you were looking at was actually a video you were looking at. The days before the deep fakes.
Deep fakes. I remember that. Yeah.
Why?
I do remember.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. It feels like.
The first time I saw some deep fakes, I think they were online. I don't know if it was like Facebook or Twitter, and they showed these. They would show still pictures, right? There's some apps that will take a still picture and you can have them sing a song. It would animate the picture singing a song. And those are cute and kind of fun. And I was always like, wow, how do they do that? That looks really good.
Yep.
Then they had, a few years back, there was this dude who kind of looks like Tom Cruise. I don't know if you ever saw that.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Deep Cruise or deep Tom Cruise. He's got like an account, right?
That's why. Oh. It's a little embarrassing, you know. It reminds me, I was once in Russia. I ran into Gorbachev. He said, you know, Mr. Movie Star, are you nervous? I said, no, Mr. Gorbachev, I'm not nervous. I know. He goes, well, remember how much a polar bear weighs.
Yeah, so he kind of looks like him, but when he takes the filter off, he doesn't look like him. But
yeah,
he kind of looks like him, and then he got his mannerisms down, and then he, you know, put some kind of filter on, and it looked like, holy cow, that's Tom Cruise. But it wasn't Tom Cruise. Yeah, that's deep fake.
That one is crazy. I remember. Go ahead.
No. So I was just gonna say, but there are, like when we were talking about the spectrum of lies, there is a spectrum of fakery, right?
Yeah.
There's the deep fake, right? With where you have like some serious AI effort in making it appear like the for instance, somebody used software to make it seem as though Joe Biden recently was telling people to stay home during a primary and don't vote. Save your vote for November. And it wasn't him. It was altered. A deep fake AI.
Yep.
But then there's like, in that spectrum, there's the cheap fakes, which, you know, we get to in a few. And the cheap fakes, it's not using AI. It's just using like deceptively cropped video to try to frame something that it as being something that it is not.
Correct. Yeah. And that, fortunately, I mean, as much as you can take that word, is what we've seen recently with Joe Biden. And I say fortunately because at least these cheap fakes that we're seeing come out from right-wing media outlets and people running with are just doctored versions of the camera angles, or cutting a clip before it gets to a point that shows more context, which seems a little less bad than actually going in and using AI to generate a completely different script, or make someone say something that they actually didn't, or alter the video footage. It's a little bit, I guess it's a little bit easier to combat. Although there still are some it
really isn't, because here's what I've noticed, right? So let's take a recent example. President Biden was recently at the G7 meeting in Europe, and there was some kind of event where there were parachuters that were dropping in out of the sky, and one parachuter was like over here, and there was another parachuter over here. So President Biden was walking over to this parachuter over here, and he was saying something to them. But the way they cropped the video, the original video is letterbox. I don't know what you call that, like 16:9 or whatever, landscape. And then they cropped it to where it's portrait, so you can't see that there is a parachuter he's talking to over here. All you see is him walking away from the pack, and then they tried to say, "Oh, look at him, he's wandering."
Yeah.
And that wasn't it at all. He was talking to a dude over here
100%.
who was the guy who was folding up his parachute.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
That's
just straight up bullshit.
Yeah.
Trump campaign sharing a clip which appeared to show President Biden at the G7 summit wandering off from other world leaders before the Italian prime minister comes over to alert him about a group photo. But when you see the video from a different angle, you see the whole story. After a skydiver landed in front of the president and other leaders, President Biden turns to his left, where there are troops. The president appears to say something to them and gives them the thumbs up before he's tapped on the arm by the Italian prime minister.
In the New York Post, let's just take that as an example. They knew better. It had been a full day earlier. In the aftermath of that moment in Normandy, it was completely debunked. There's videos from other angles, not just put out by the Biden campaign, but put out by independent observers saying, no, President Biden was not meandering off. He was going to salute one of the other parachutists. And then he came back to take, the prime minister signaled him. He came back to take that photograph. For hours, that was a done story. And the New York Post put it on the front page anyway the following morning and tried to turn it into something it was not. Yesterday, we had White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre call out these cheap fakes, and in particular, the one Twitter account associated with the RNC, the Republican National Committee, which puts out a lot of these misleading videos, and then it's amplified by others on the right. And the RNC researchers account simply said, nope, we're going to keep doing it. Just flat out said, we don't care.
100%. And they did the same thing at D-Day as well, where this was where I first saw it, was from the D-Day memorial speeches where he was with President Macron. And there was an angle where Joe Biden's walking off and an aide is walking with him, or maybe it's Jill, I forget exactly, but he's walking away from the ceremony. And they were running with it as if he's being led out of the ceremony, blah, blah, blah. He couldn't stay. And then it turns out the camera angle pulls out and pans back, and Macron is there just shaking hands because the event is over. Right. There was another one where he was looking like he was sitting in a chair or sitting in an invisible chair, they tried to claim. It's when you pull out the camera angle, you look at everyone else. He was actually just waiting for the people to finish. He was the officers being saluted.
Kenny, I have done that. I have done exactly that. And I will say, let's see, it's 2024. I probably did it about 16 years, long time ago, 16 years ago in church, right? So I'm Muslim. Let's get that straight. Yeah. I am Muslim. I don't normally go to church, but the person I was seeing at the time was in church. And so I went to church with them. And so, there's a lot of standing up and sitting down, and even 16 years ago, my lower back was still an issue, right? So I'm not crazy about all that standing up and sitting down.
Yeah.
And often I wasn't sure when we're supposed to sit down. So I would partially sit down in anticipation of them saying, please be seated,
Yeah.
And that's the pose. That is the exact pose that they caught President Biden in the middle of, are we sit down or are we standing?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, not only is that not proof of, a decline, you got to have some core strength. Excuse me.
Preach.
You got to have some core strength to keep yourself positioned like that in mid-sit, So come on now.
Yeah, if Donald Trump was trying the same thing, he'd probably let one rip. And then...
So, I mean, look, I get that their guy is so shitty, right? That they have now had to resort to cheap fakes. This is a term, by the way. Cheap fakes is new.
Yeah.
I think it's a term that Karine Jean-Paul may have coined that phrase. I don't know, but it is from the White House, and I think it's clever and it's good, and I'm going with it too. But if your guy is so good, why do you have to resort to this cheap fakery? Why don't you why can't you stand on his character or his accomplishments, or he has none of those things. He doesn't have character. He doesn't have accomplishments. The only accomplishment he has is that he passed a humongous, ludicrous, obscene tax cut for the ultra rich. That's it. Everything he promised to do, he didn't do, He said he was going to come up with a new health care plan. He didn't do it. He said he was going to do infrastructure. He didn't do it. Even, what's that thing in Racine, in Wisconsin, he had this big press conference where he said, we're going to make a major investment here, and he brought a gold shovel, and they did that thing.
I made a video on that a while back.
Oh, we gotta
wild.
We gotta drop that in here.
Yeah, for sure.
Or a piece of it.
Because it's a really good example, because Trump said all those things, he made all those promises, he did a big show of it. They started they did the golden shovel thing, and they were all there. And then there's a really good expose on it that I included part of in the video, where it goes into how they were taking all that land that was supposed to be around this big plant that was going to be put there for, I believe, chip manufacturing. And I believe it was the Taiwanese company that was going to go there. And so they like evicted people from their houses. They started buying up all this property around the area, and all this stuff, only for it to never fully come to fruition. So all these people got kicked out of their land. They had to sell their houses and stuff for no reason. There's a bunch of lawsuits over it. And then now Joe Biden came in, and Microsoft is actually going to do something with that land and build like an AI infrastructure building thing there, whatever. But it's really interesting how messed up that whole situation is, and how the people of that area got screwed over for this promised investment that never materialized. And the cherry on top of all of that is, even if the project had gone through, the tax windfall, the tax incentives that had to be given to the business through the plan that was currently on the books would have completely offset any financial benefit that the new jobs would have brought in, or the new, just having that industry there. So the tax incentives that company got completely wiped out the financial gain that was promised. It's insane. It's a really interesting scenario, but very good example of what you're talking about. He has nothing to go on. Even the things he can go on didn't go as promised, hurt people that they were supposed to support. Where's the border wall? Where the fuck is that, dude?
Yeah. And to a much larger point about this cheap fake, deep fake, cheap fake thing, it reminds me of that old fable about the boy who cried wolf.
Yes.
Okay. What we have seen from Republicans, and this is a long time going now, you got the Benghazi,
oh my God, Her
fake
emails.
controversy. You got the emails thing. You got the Obama's birth certificate thing. I don't know if you're familiar with this guy, James O'Keefe from
Project Veritas.
Project Veritas.
Yeah.
That thing. Everything they do, they bill it as some kind of big expose. Look, guys, we're open to exposing the truth, exposing lies and revealing the truth, whatever. We're open to it. Bring it. If you have it, if there's something legit, we've already got people under indictment, in our own party. We're not afraid of holding people accountable for their shit. But don't make things up, because now you have lost credibility. So now when you have a thing like a Hunter's laptop, everybody looks at you sideways because, this is another thing that you're trying to pass off as legit, and it's shady. It's shady. This laptop has been in how many people's hands before it ended up with the FBI? And how can you verify nothing was added to that? Come on now. Get the hell out of here with all of this cheap fake, deep fake. Come real. You got some accomplishments. Bring it.
Totally. And I 100% agree with that. And I think, as frustrating as it is to be like, do the right thing, come with it. They can't. They have to resort to this because they have nothing. Donald Trump has nothing tangible to run on. So he runs on making up, not necessarily making up, but really leaning into a crisis at the border, which I wouldn't go so far as to say it is that. But then he won't even allow the Republicans to address it. He has to make up made up languages and made up countries. They're coming from countries no one's ever heard of. They're speaking languages. What are you talking about, dude?
Yep.
Are these Amazonian tribes coming through?
Somebody knows those languages. Somebody.
Seriously. Are we talking about Slovenian? Is that it? You can't understand Melania?
I wish somebody would ask him. What, Mr. Trump, what languages are you referring to?
Bing, 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 boom.
Kenny, I'm old enough to remember when Donald Trump had his escalator speech 9 years ago. And he said that Mexico wasn't sending their best, that they're bringing crime, they're bringing drugs, they're rapists, and he said this to a national audience, right? As a big accusation. Turns out the whole time he was talking about himself.
What do you know?
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Back to our earlier point about projection.
The whole time.
Damn, he's the criminal. Someone, I think it was Jon Stewart, said recently on the Daily Show. He was talking about, which I think we'll touch on later, but Trump's comments about Milwaukee, calling it horrible. And he was like, then Trump tried to back up those claims and say, I was just talking about the crime in Milwaukee. And Jon Stewart was like, are we talking about when you and your felonious friends come into town?
Yeah.
But yeah, man.
Yeah. So he said they're bringing crime, right? And this is a guy who not only just put his 88 or 91 felonies to the side, right? Just put those.
Let me push those over
right.
here.
Good evening, everyone. We are coming on the air with major developments involving former President Trump and Georgia's investigation into Trump, his allies, and their alleged attempts to overturn that state's 2020 presidential election results. We know that the grand jury in Fulton County, Georgia, handed up an indictment against Donald Trump and 18 other individuals for their alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in the state of Georgia.
The indictment brings felony charges against Donald John Trump.
It's another historic moment in a series of historic moments. Former U.S. President Donald Trump indicted again. This, the fourth case against him, adding up to a combined 91 charges. The first indictment less than 5 months ago. Trump accused of falsifying business records linked to a payment to Stormy Daniels. Since then, the case involving classified documents at his Mar-a-Lago home, USA! USA! The January 6th insurrection case, and now accusations of trying to meddle with Georgia's election results specifically. In part stemming from this now infamous phone call with Georgia's Secretary of State.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have, because we won the state.
Former President Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. He is the first ever former U.S. president to be convicted of a crime. This afternoon, a jury in New York City determined he conducted business fraud in a scheme to illegally influence the 2016 election through a hush money payment to an adult film star.
Then let's talk about, the people that he has hired, that he has employed, that he has added to his team, the Paul Manaforts.
Rudy Giuliani.
God damn. How is Rudy Giuliani not in prison?
Bro,
yet?
I don't know. I saw a picture of him driving around the other day, and I was like, how can you still afford that car when you're so bankrupt?
What kind of car was he driving?
I couldn't see the full thing. It was just a steering wheel, but it looked nice. It looked nice.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's out in Florida. I don't know what he's doing. Fucking.
Who else? The Peter Navarro, Steve Bannon. We just learned Steve Bannon. We just learned he was expecting to go to Club Fed. Now, I don't think there's any such thing as Club Fed, but it's when they talk about Club Fed, they talk about a federal prison that is like the cushiest, the fanciest. You've got prison guards waiting on you.
Yeah.
Sir, would you like some caviar? Would you like some Grey Poupon with your bologna sandwich? He's not going to that.
No.
He was expecting that, not going. He's going to a prison in Danbury, Connecticut. Danbury.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's not fancy. So
good.
What else? He said they're rapists. He said.
Developments tonight as a jury has found former President Donald Trump liable for sexually assaulting advice columnist E. Jean Carroll. Carroll was awarded $5 million in a civil trial.
He so far is the only former president ever to be an adjudicated rapist.
Yeah.
I have to say adjudicated rapist because they're like, he was not convicted of rape. Yeah, but the judge did clarify and said that what people what the layperson considers as rape is forcible penetration, whether it's with the penis. I can't believe I'm talking about these things, but whatever.
Wow.
Whether it's the penis or it's with the finger. And apparently it was his finger or fingers that he forced into E. Jean Carroll. Oh, the sentence.
Wow.
I can't believe I said that sentence.
Yeah, wow.
I feel dirty.
Yeah. And sorry. Yeah. And yet people don't when they think about these things with relation to him, like MAGA supporters. What? Your Christian values are not shaken by these things?
Dude, you heard about the whole thing with his first wife, Ivana, right? You heard about that? What she had written about?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, she wrote that he raped her.
Wow.
And then then there was a whole debate about whether or not a husband can rape a wife, and
that's a little ridiculous.
I think a spouse has the right to say no.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, and then I think he sued her, and I think she had to take it out of the book or something. But it happened. This is all in the public record.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, even you see so many people with the like, oh, like that's just someone saying that, or oh, blah blah blah. It's like, dude, look at the statistical evidence. Look at the things this man says and does. He talks about wanting to shaboing his own daughter.
Yep.
He says grab him by the P word.
He admitted that on tape.
Yeah.
He admitted to sexual assault.
Yes.
On the tape.
Yeah. Like, come on, dude. How is this defensible?
And then the drugs thing. Because he says they're bringing crime, bringing drugs. So you may or may not have seen this report, but there was a report that came out not too long ago that showed that the Trump White House was kept fully stocked. Oh, totally. With things like fentanyl and like lots of other, I forget what do they call it, Schedule 1 or Schedule 3. I forget which one is the more dangerous one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's maybe Schedule 1.
Confiscated all that fentanyl from the border after he locked people's families up and then just took it for himself. Like, what the hell, dude?
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I'm not one to stigmatize drug use. I myself am a recovering addict, right?
Yep.
But I'm also not the president. I'm not the president of the United States, nor am I a former president reapplying for the job that I got fired from.
You're fired.
Yeah. And I'm also clean and sober now, going on 21 years.
Congratulations.
Knock on wood. Thank you. August 17th will make 21 years.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I'm not someone without sin casting that first stone. I'm just saying, bro, if you convicted felon Trump are casting stones 9 years ago about Mexico not sending its best because they're criminals, they're rapists, and they're bringing drugs and all that stuff, you fit the bill in all three.
Yeah,
all three counts.
100%. He was being prophetic, but about the wrong people. Honestly,
it's so weird. He's got like almost a perfect record with that. What
he blamed other people of.
The accusation to confession ratio is like is 1-to-1, right?
He's 3 for 3 right now, dude.
He's
batting 1,000.
Unreal.
That is crazy, and that was his foray into the political stage. It's funny. I was just watching the season of South Park, like I love going back and rewatching South Park and stuff, but it was the first season where they have the giant douche and turd sandwich or whatever as Hillary and Trump running against each other. And I'm sitting here watching it now in 2024, and I'm like, wow, this is like so prophetic, because like the whole time, Mr. Garrison, who is essentially Trump, is like, after a while he starts to realize like, oh my God, what am I getting myself into? Like, I don't have the wherewithal to run the country and to run for president. So he's literally like, guys, don't elect me. Don't elect me. And everyone's like, yeah, he speaks the truth. He just says what he feels. And he's like, no. I don't know what I'm doing. And I was like, man, I forgot how crazy that was, like down to the wire, because he didn't think he was going to win.
Yeah.
Nobody did really.
I have to rewatch that, because I don't think I've ever even seen that one.
It's very good. Very good.
Mr. Garrison is the one with the hat, right? The Mr. Hat.
I think, in the older seasons, I think so. He's like the teacher guy.
Yeah.
So
I just watched a thing called it was an old movie from the 80s called Brewster's Millions. And it starred Richard Pryor, who was like he's a baseball player for like a AAA league or something, and his distant uncle just passed away and left him $30 million. And the catch was he had 30 days in which to spend $30 million. And if he was successful at spending $30 million over a 30-day period, he would get $300 million. But the catch was he couldn't tell anybody why he was doing this. So he ends up looking like a complete asshole who's just like spending spree. He can't buy anything of value. So whatever he buys, it can't have any value. And by the 30th day, he can't have anything but the shirt on his back, everything. He have to have no assets whatsoever. So at one point, he decides that a great way to spend money and waste it is on an election. So he decides to run for mayor of New York City, but his campaign slogan is none of the above. So he's basically telling people, don't vote for me. I have no business being in office, but neither do these two guys, right? So he was like a third party candidate, I suppose, who had no interest whatsoever in winning, but also had no interest in the other two candidates winning, which I thought was interesting because we're looking at a third party candidate right now in RFK Jr.
True.
Who has no chance of winning himself, who claims that he doesn't like Donald Trump, but also says that he doesn't like Joe Biden either.
Right.
So
what a weird political setup.
Yeah. Man. So anywho, with all that talk about raggedy dishes.
I was thinking the same thing, man.
Why don't we? I don't know if this was a as good a time as any to segue into it, but
I think so.
Let's jump on into today's You Raggedy Bish. You
Raggedy Bish. Well, I have had the pleasure and the honor, frankly, of announcing the past two Raggedy Bishes, I believe. Would you like to do the honor of announcing this week's?
I might, Travis. I might.
Touche.
Yeah, let's just keep it going on Donald Trump, the raggediest bish of all the raggediest bishes that was ever raggedy.
Well said.
And there's no shortage of things to fault him for, but let's start with current topics. He recently said that Milwaukee, which is the location of the Republican National Convention, is a horrible city.
Horrible.
So, I mean, first of all, this is the city that you are having your nominating convention, right? This is a city that is one of the biggest in terms of people of color. There's a large amount of people of color there. On top of that, you are in the middle of some kind of campaign to gain more Black support. The Blacks love me. The Blacks, they love me.
I have so many Black friends. Direct quote.
So you are casting, you're denigrating the people of Milwaukee, and you also are telling them, but I want your vote too.
Yeah. Didn't he have something recently too where he literally said exactly that? Not in regards to people of color, but he said like, I don't care as long as I have your vote or something. And then Joe Biden, I think, took that and made an ad out of it.
Yeah, he did. He absolutely did. So when this whole thing about this whole statement about Milwaukee came out, and it was verified by independent journalists who were there at the event, they said, oh yeah, he absolutely did say this. First, Donald Trump tried not to walk back his comments at all. He was like, wants to, own it. But then, people around him were freaking the hell out because, again, if you're trying to gain votes in a battleground state like Wisconsin, and you're taking like the largest city and telling him that largest city is shitty, when he's made that comment about Milwaukee being horrible, it was giving shithole countries energy.
Absolutely, 100%. I thought the same thing.
Yeah. So then he denied that he said it, and then he said, "Oh, actually, I was talking about the crime." Every city has crime. Every city, even the safest cities have crime. But Republicans have been trying to say that crime is up around the nation when actually crime is down.
Yeah,
crime is down.
They have no statistics to back it up, and then when presented with them, which often isn't the case, and I'm very frustrated about that. I made a video recently where Tim Scott got some pushback about claiming that under Biden there was the worst crime in 50 years, when it was not true at all. And the interviewer on ABC, just like, he was asking about the bump stock thing, and he just said, "Actually, Senator, as I'm sure you know, crime is actually down. But I want to get back to my other." It was like, what, dude? He's not even answering your other question. Like, push back more.
Yeah.
So I went in and found the FBI statistics that prove crime is down. So
we need more pushback like that. We need pushback, period. And all too often, a lot of these people on the news shows, they're like, they're not even doorstops. They're just, they're being walked right over. He had continuing with the Raggedy Bish thing. So Donald Trump had an event, a quote unquote Blacks for Trump event.
I love the signs behind me. Blacks for Trump. I like those signs. Blacks for Trump. You watch. You watch. Those signs are great. Thank you.
I can't tell you how ridiculous the Blacks for Trump slogan is. It's like,
right?
It's like slugs for salt, or trees for matchsticks, or so this event was at a church in Detroit, I believe it was, and there's video from this that clearly shows that 80 to 90% of the attendees at this Blacks for Trump event were white.
What?
White.
All those galleries in front of every picture, who painted it, what period it represented. I always listened to all kinds of different music, and really supplemented my education.
And on top of that, there were tons of empty seats. Tons of empty seats there. They bussed people in that were wearing Trump gear. So they weren't even like, when you go to church, right? I remember going to church. I went more than a handful of times. You kind of want to, you don't have to, but you kind of want to put on your Sunday best. And I know in the Black community, you're not trying to show up looking all shabby and wearing some raggedy ass t-shirt that has a picture of a former convicted felon.
Yeah.
His mugshot on your t-shirt. I saw some of those in the crowd. It's like, that's just disrespectful to me. At least be respectful. If you're going to get bussed in, come on, represent,
Yeah. And they were, right? They were getting people bussed in to be there, to fill up the seats.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
But to me, I think the most vile thing about this Trumpian lie that the blacks love me, the most vile thing about it is what he tried to do with our votes in 2020. His team, his Stop the Steal team, they tried to invalidate the votes of many cities that had large black populations. He was trying to invalidate, just throw out, just completely throw out our votes.
Yeah.
There's nothing more sacred, excuse me, than our right to vote. And I'm saying this right as we're celebrating Juneteenth.
Right.
By the time you guys see this, Juneteenth will be a day past. But
Right.
Juneteenth, it stays in the heart, man. It's there forever. It's not just one day, June 19th.
Yeah.
And Juneteenth is the merging of June and 19th. Juneteenth. You know, we fought hard and long for this right to vote, you know, long past those Jim Crow days where I think I mentioned it earlier, when you had to either pay in order to have the right to vote, or, you know, they forced you to, you know, they quizzed you, took a test. And there were straight up intimidations and threats trying to prevent black people from voting back in the day.
Yeah.
And you think that we give a damn about the fact that you have a mugshot and that that you're selling sneakers? He literally thought that gave him some credibility with us, as if we are that stereotype.
Exactly.
We are the stereotype that reveres criminality.
Yeah.
How disrespectful is that, to lump us all into a stereotype, say they love criminals? That's why they love me, because they love criminals.
100%. And I mean, just look how, like, the Blacks for Trump event is a perfect example, but there's been other occasions as well where he just parades African-American people for the sheer fact that they're African-American across like the stage. You had it happen at the New Jersey rally in Wildwood. You had it happen at the rally in the Bronx, where he's just like, oh, look what I had, like, just as if they're like, I don't even know what props, I guess. Like, look at these props I have. Like, how disrespectful is that to not only to their personhood, but to the entire group of people that you're just parading on stage as if, look, haha, wow. Like, that facade is just, you see right through it. At least if you're a normal person, you're like, oh, that's gross, dude.
Dude, I sometimes I wish that if you're going to use a black person, please don't let it be somebody like a moron, like a Herschel Walker, or a criminal like Lawrence Taylor, who, you know, when he was playing, you know, football, yeah, it was great, but he is since like a registered sex offender now. You know, I mean, there's a lot of us. You know, you have to. You're picking shit like the fruit, the rotten fruit that fell off the tree. Man, reach a little higher.
At least, and forgive me here for going out on a limb for this guy, but at least he picks shitty white people as well.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
yeah. True that. He's an equal opportunity rotten fruit picker. Yeah. Indeed.
We'll use that. Oh boy.
So yeah, I mean, we could literally go on for days talking about all of the reasons why Donald Trump is this week's raggedy bitch and next week's and the weeks after that. You know, he is a convicted felon who is only running for office not to help Americans. I have yet to hear him in, you know, I don't watch his speeches, but I do catch snippets of them, right?
Yeah.
And he mostly uses them to complain about shit, you know, but he is, half of the complaints are straight up lies, and the other half of the complaints is how they're treating me so badly. He's not talking about the American people. He's not talking about improving life for Americans, not like President Biden does. President Biden, he doesn't just complain about shit. He has power, and he's using that power to help Americans, lowering the price of insulin, lowering the price of inhalers, shit like that. It matters.
Investing in our infrastructure.
Yeah.
CHIPS Act. You could go on for days.
We could, but I would like to leave our show on a positive note, and
like
I
that.
think something that he did this week, President Biden, did something that was kind of ballsy, a little bit. So a few weeks ago, he wrote that executive order that that addressed the border, right? Addressed border security. Now, it wasn't as effective as it could have been had it gone through Congress, because if it goes through Congress, now you have funding to support, exactly, to buy equipment to track down that fentanyl, and and to provide more border agents and all that stuff. But he's doing something where Republicans are trying to block him from doing anything.
Yep.
This week, he announced that he was signing an executive order that will protect the undocumented spouses. And this is big, because these are not people who, first of all, they can't just have gotten here. They can't just have arrived like a month ago and now they're no. They have to have been here as of June 17th. They have to have been here 10 years minimum. Wow. So these are not people who, they're here for a season and they're gone. These are people who have started their lives here, who have children, families, children.
Yep.
And he's trying to keep these families together, not separate. And that's huge, I think.
That is. Especially when you compare it to what Trump was doing with, separating them. It's so heartfelt to see someone actually giving a crap about these people who in large part are asylum seekers, are refugees.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So to not pull them apart, but to instead be able to keep them together is really, I think it just shows, the character of this man. Regardless of what you feel about the policies or whatever, at least you can acknowledge that Joe Biden is a genuinely good, decent-hearted human being that cares about other people. Chip Franklin has said this so many times in his videos. Not only does the man have the humility to laugh at himself, to be, human, but he has that human condition of caring for other people that Trump just does not. Let's be honest.
I couldn't have said any perfectly than you just said it, buddy. Let's end it on that note, my friend.
Let's do it.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Defiant Podcast. I'm Majid Padellan, a.k.a. Brooklyn Dad Defiant.
I'm Kenny Hesse, a.k.a. the Hessenator.
Stay defiant.